Hey, I'm NeverLag, and this is every game I played in April. Let's do this thing. So, the burning question is, did I find triumph in the Ghost of Yotei Legends raid? Or did I roll credits in the supposedly heart-wrenching story of Pacopia? Nah, I did neither of those things, obviously. Instead, I started April with Grime II, the sequel to Grime, which I did my very first quick review on. So go check that out if you haven't already. Let me know what you think about that. It was a bit of a test for me to see if I could do something more concise, a little bit shorter, because quite frankly, I don't have time to do a longer review format. And so let me know what you guys think of it. The short story, though, is that I liked it. I thought it was a really good game. As for the long story, as I've continued to reflect on Grime 2 over the past month, I am just finding once again that the Grime franchise is one that doesn't stick with me. Even though when I'm playing it, I think it's a great game. I had a great time with it. It's just one of those games that, and maybe we all have these games where we play them, we enjoy them in the moment, but when we put them down, we don't really think about them anymore. We don't really have any urge to go back and play them or be in the world. I don't know, does that make any sense? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but that's what Grime is for me, and it sounds really damning of the game, which I don't think is fair. Like I said, I think this is an excellent game. In my review, 8.5, 9 out of 10. It's a great Metroidvania. This is a very personal thing, and I think a lot of it comes down to the art design and the art style just kind of clashing with my preferences a little bit because it's very unique. I mentioned in my review that the eclectic nature of the assets in the game can remind me of the I Spy pages from way back when, if you can remember. And because of that, I'm betting it's quite polarizing. There's probably a group of people that look at Grime and just think, that's kind of gross and weird, and I'm not really into it. Don't really want to play that game. And then there's the other group of people who look at Grime and are like, this is gross and weird and awesome. I'm into it. Why are not more games so grimy? And I guess I fall into the former group, even though, I don't know. There's elements to the art style I actually really do like. I'm being harsh. But then there are people like my good friend, and he's so grimy. He's just the grimiest dude. He loves Grime. He can't get enough Grime. It's a game of his heart. Thinks about Grime all the time. I don't know. I guess that's just not me. I guess the point is that for me, how I feel in a game world greatly impacts its long-lasting impact on me and how much I think back to it fondly. And Grime is just not one of those worlds that I love to be in. Maybe that's the simplest way to put it. And I just think it's one of those art styles that's very polarizing in that way. I think you're either going to love this art style for how unique it is, or it might kind of rub you the wrong way. But that's kind of the point of art, honestly, and it's all of this is very ironic, actually, when you consider the fact that the entire theme and story of Grime 2 is about art. What makes art beautiful? What makes art ugly? The gluttonous, insatiable consumption of art as a society. All themes in this game. It's very introspective on the subject. So here I am being very introspective on the subject as well. So there you have my philosophical thesis on why I love and don't love Grime 2 at the exact same time. But to be slightly less existential for a minute to wrap this up, Grime as a franchise, as well as specifically Grime 2, they are just really, I can look at them and say they are objectively really well-made games that are near the pinnacle of the genre for Metroidvanias across the board, whether it's story, world design, theming, combat, movement, all of it is just really excellent. And then especially when you look at Grime through the lens of the more Souls niche in the Metroidvania genre, that subcategory, it's near the top, if not at the top of that category. Finally, to rapid fire some other thoughts about Grime before I finish here, what I thought it did best was movement. Some really great movement, especially by the end of this game. You have a very fun suite of abilities that all flow really well in and out of each other and some really challenging platforming sections that really test you and make you put those abilities to use. What I thought Grime 2 did worst was its performance. Its technical state at launch was leaving something to be desired. There was a lot of jank visually and in some of the gameplay. And I didn't experience that with Grime 1, but I didn't play Grime 1 at launch, and I have reason to believe that Grime 1 did launch in a similar state as well, and they continued to polish it over time. So seems like maybe it's just a bit of a tendency of this developer to release things, at like 90-95% instead of giving it that extra few months of TLC, which is a bummer, but at least they did get Grime 1 into a state that was technically very sound by the time I played it. So if you play Grime 2 later with some patches and maybe, if they have a DLC planned, I'm betting it will be in a much better state by then. I really enjoyed the character work in this game. It's voiced, but in the way where the characters are just speaking gibberish, and it frequently reminded me of the Gestrels from Expedition 33 in the way the voices are delivered, the tone, and even in the humor in the writing, which is never a bad thing. I really enjoyed it. Felt like they took some inspiration from Expedition 33. I don't remember it being quite like that in the first game, and it was very charming. One of the things I would say I'm mixed on would be the more Souls-like elements to building your character. There's a lot of good here. There's over 30 weapons. They're all fairly unique, fun to try out. They have different move sets, different abilities, and really do change up your playstyle. There's different armor sets to find throughout the game that you can mix and match, and if you wear a full set, you get set bonuses, and there's transmog. A lot of great systems here. I really had fun building my character as you would in a Souls game. Typically, I just go strength and grab a heavy stick, but there were some different attributes in this game. I think they were like divergence and pliability, and you kind of have to figure out what they do, but most weapons scale with one of these abilities, or dex or strength. And I ended up finding out that one of these new attributes, I don't remember if it was pliability or what it was, not only could scale with weapons, but also scaled with your parry damage. And so I went all in on putting all my stats into that attribute, really buffing my parry damage, finding a weapon that scaled with that same attribute, and just running around doing a ton of damage, not only with my weapon, but also doing huge chunk damage anytime I would parry an enemy or a boss, and it was a lot of fun. But the other side of that is that Grime 2 has kind of what I'm starting to view as an archaic game design format, where it's from the early Souls games, where you just have such a finite, limited amount of resources to level up weapons, and what it does is it just really limits your ability to experiment and to play around and find new weapons that you enjoy playing with more. You kind of get funneled into using whatever weapon you've been upgrading throughout the beginning of the game, and when you find this cool new weapon later in the game, you just don't have enough resources to level it up and have any fun with it. And I'm just really tired of that. I think we need to get rid of that in these games. It needs to be easier to just play around, find out what's fun, use some different weapons. Anywho, I am all Grime 2'd out. I'm Grimed out? I'm Grime 2'd out? I don't know. Let me know what you think about Grime and the art style. Are you with it? Are you grimy? Let me know in the comments. Keeping with the theme of excellent sequels to already excellent games, the next game in April that I played was Hades II. And I'm a little later getting to this game than most, I guess, because I waited for early access to be finished. I don't really mess with early access when it's a game I know I'm going to care about and that I'm going to like. I want the finished, complete, polished package before I jump in. And so here we are, having completed Hades II. Well, we'll say beaten. I haven't completed Hades II, but I have beaten it. I've rolled credits. And I went on a bit of a journey with this game, I will say, because in the first half, the first 12 hours or so, I was a little lukewarm on this game. It gets nothing but rave reviews. I kind of had heard from everyone how it's just so much better than Hades 1 in every way. And for me, I just was having this feeling that I've played this before. This just feels like Hades 1 again with new characters and a new skin, basically. Which I will say, even having finished the game, that is what this game is mostly. Like 80% of it, it's just more Hades. If you liked Hades and you want more of it, here it is. There's a whole lot of it here for you to play. But having finished the game now, I think I'm near 30 hours once I rolled credits. My appreciation and enjoyment of this game has continued to grow, and continued to grow to the point where now I'm really fond of this game. Even though there are things that I do like about Hades 1 more, I think Hades 2 is an excellent game, and I think that I'll come to view these two games as a package deal, in the same way that I look at God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, or Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. They are part of the same whole, and together I think they're greater than the sum of their parts. I think they each have strengths and weaknesses, and at the end of the day, these are two really, really great games, which is a surprise to no one. Minor spoilers for Hades 2 game design stuff. I'm not going to get into story or anything like that specifically. But basically, yeah, Hades 2 is twice the size of Hades, essentially, where you had one path to take in Hades, and I believe, 4 bosses? There's double that now. There's 2 paths eventually that you can take in Hades 2 that are entirely different runs, different biomes, different bosses, and for story reasons, you can alternate between the two, getting different materials that you need in one for the other, and vice versa. And then also, it's kind of genius from a game design standpoint, because it allows you to shake it up. If you're frustrated on one run, you can move to a different run. And it's really great from that standpoint. The only downside, I would say, is that it is a big game. There's a lot here. The scope is much larger than Hades, twice the size. And, that can be good or bad. It can be a little overwhelming at times. But overall, I would say that it is an upgrade over Hades 1. And another thing that I would say is unanimously an upgrade over Hades 1 is the weapon selection. The roster of weapons here. There are more weapons, and I think, by and large, I enjoyed all these weapons even more than I did in Hades 1. Every time I would try a weapon and get this crazy build going and just be having a blast, and feel like, man, this is the only weapon I want to play as, or play with, the game would give me a reason to try a new weapon, and I'd be like, all right, let's try this weapon out, I guess. And inevitably, I would find a build with that weapon that was just a ton of fun, and that happened over and over. And I love the weapon selection in this game. I think it's top tier. I think they outdid the weapons from Hades 1. Definitely an improvement for me. But now for some things that I do think Hades 2 does a little bit worse, or that I didn't like as much. And these are definitely subjective. These would go very much under the subjective category, even though pretty much everything would. But that is story and characters. The story in Hades 2, I enjoyed for about 90% of it. I actually really thought it was good, no complaints, but I don't think, this is a pretty common opinion from what I've seen out there on the interwebs, they did not stick the landing. And I've even seen that the ending was originally different in early access, and it got enough criticism that Supergiant actually adjusted the ending. And I don't know what the original ending is, but the way it is now, what we have in the final version, is still really messy. And it feels evident that this story has been massaged and tweaked, and that they really struggled to take the bigger plot here, because there's a lot going on in this plot, and it just feels like they struggled to tie it all together, to bring everything to a nice conclusion that is satisfying, makes sense, and then even solves the more complicated issue that comes with a roguelike of why are you continuing to play after the credits roll, which is a weird thing to have to solve for. I don't envy being the one having to do that, but all of it just still felt very awkward and forced, and it just wasn't great. It wasn't a very satisfying ending, unfortunately. The other thing I didn't like as much as Hades 1, and this is extremely subjective, even more so I would think than the story, but I just didn't love the characters especially the ones in the hub space, which is really important in a game like this because that kind of was the special sauce to what made Hades 1 so special. What put Supergiant on the map was the way they wove the character development and the relationships and the story into the mechanic of dying and then returning to the hub space where you would interact with all these characters. And in Hades 1, I couldn't wait to do that. I really struggle to think of a character in Hades 1 that I didn't like. And that just wasn't the case here in Hades 2. I was much less interested in a lot of these characters in the hub space, some of which I didn't like, and others I could take or leave. But I think specifically of Nemesis, I just did not care for Nemesis's personality. She was just so boring, and I did not care to develop conversations with her. Every time I talked to her, I was like, man, that was the worst. I hated that. And then there's characters like Odysseus, he's cool. He's pretty bland, but he's chill. Hecate, she's fine. Strife, I came to enjoy more over time, but I feel like there were times where her character really clashed. Like, it was very awkward to have her in the hub space, which is kind of the point of her character, but it was still weird. And then it all kind of culminates in the main character, Melinoë, which, don't get me wrong, Melinoë is a great character. She is awesome. I really, really do like her, but I just loved Zagreus. Zagreus is my dude. There was something special about his character, the performance, the voice actor. I really, really loved Zagreus, whereas I just think Melinoë's great. So yeah, I know these things are incredibly subjective and also nitpicky because we're talking about the difference of 10 out of 10 characters in Hades 1 versus 9 out of 10 in Hades 2. It's it's a pretty high bar. And they're still excellent. I really enjoyed a lot of the other characters outside of the hub space that you meet on your runs. They are excellent and just all-timers, really. Every bit as good as anything that was in Hades 1. I loved so many of these characters. Specific shout out to Narcissus. He is so funny. Supergiant just knocked it out of the park with his character design and his voice actor. He reminds me of like a mix between Napoleon Dynamite and Nicolas Cage, and thinks he's the most gorgeous man to have ever existed. And it's fantastic. I have so many clips of conversations with him. But anyways, I really love Hades 2, so much more than I was expecting, because early on it really did feel like I've been there, I've done that, I've played this game before, this is just more Hades. But at the end of it all, there's just so much about this game to love, and that I continue to like the more that I play of it. I haven't even talked about the boss fights, which are excellent. They're very memorable, they get better the more you play them. There's still so much to this game that I haven't done post-credits, plenty to do, and it's a game that I feel like I will want to come back to and keep playing. It's similar to Death Stranding 2 in that I kind of need to move on to other things, but I still kind of just am finally at a point where I just want to do another run. I want to hop into the game and play some more. As for what's next after Hades 2 from Supergiant, I very much went into this game thinking I don't really want a Hades 3, and I still feel that way. Supergiant are so good at changing things up, and they're so imaginative that I kind of want to see them do something new. But that said, if they're going to do a Hades 3, what I would really want at this point is a coming together of the gameplay of Zagreus and Melinoë, and maybe you get to choose between them and take them out on different runs or different storylines or paths that intersect, and they have different gameplay styles, obviously. I think that could be a good culmination to this series if they were to do that, because after finishing Hades 2, this would make no sense from a story standpoint, but what I really want is for like someone to mod Hades 1 and Hades 2 into one game, where you can pick from any of the 3 runs, fight, any of the bosses from both games, and play as Zagreus or Melinoë. And maybe that's just what Hades 3 is. I don't know. But either way, Supergiant are pretty firmly in my top 5 developers at this point. They just don't miss. They're so good at what they do. And if you've only played Hades from these guys, then you need to go check out their other stuff. Their other games, Bastion and Transistor, are both excellent. And I haven't yet played Pyre. I'm about to. I've played like the first 30 minutes of it, and it also just oozes style and quality, and you can see the DNA in these games of where Hades came from, and they're just so good. Go check these out. Moving on to game number 3, I played Pragmata, the enigmatic new IP from Capcom that seemed to be in development hell for many years, finally came out and was shockingly really good. It got great critical reception, it sold well, and I can attest to the fact that this is a very interesting, unique, and high quality game. It is a very interesting combination of a third-person shooter mixed with this hacking mini-game that you perform simultaneously while navigating the 3D space and avoiding enemies in real time. And it's kind of clunky, it's a little cumbersome at times, it's hard to get used to, but it is very interesting, and it has me really intrigued at what a sequel could do or what a sequel could be. Will this turn into a new genre of video game that we're going to have to come up with a weird name for? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe. But I had a blast with this game. It looks and runs fantastic. It is visually very impressive. The characters, though, they're a little campy and maybe hard to take seriously. They're also endearing. I really enjoyed Hugh as a character. Oh, he's the astronaut you play as, and then the android girl that you find that helps you in combat, that you name Diana, is also very charming and endearing. She is I would say a pretty realistic representation of a 6-year-old girl, and the father-daughter connection in this game is very heartwarming. It works very well. You do come to care about Diana, and I would even say that the story is pretty solid. It has some good plot points, some good twists and turns, some good sci-fi intrigue, and it delivers. The game design essentially amounts to some linear levels that you go into, different sections. I think there's 5 or 6 sections of this game that you go into. They're mostly linear. You navigate through them. There's some hidden areas and hidden collectibles to find in each level, different enemy encounters, some minor jump scares. This really is kind of a Dead Space or Resident Evil if it were if it were rated PG or something. You know, it's much more tame and approachable from that standpoint. And then at the end of each area or level, there's a boss fight, and then you get some story and you go back to the hub space, and then you go to a new level. And that's kind of the setup of this game. It's very video gamey, but I kind of appreciate it for that fact. It's not trying to be the next most immersive world, and I just think a lot more games need to be okay with being video games, and this one is. My playthrough to beat the game was about 12 hours, and then to get the quote-unquote true ending took me around 17 hours. And I think the question that we all had going into this was, yes, the hacking minigame thing is novel, but will it have the legs to go the full length of a video game, or will it tire itself out? And for me, I think the answer was that it did. It was enjoyable throughout the entire game. Like I said, there was some cumbersome moments, and it can be cumbersome to learn, and things can get really chaotic when you're trying to navigate this ridiculous maze, and then there's 5 enemies around you trying to kill you. It can be a little frustrating, but by the end of it, I feel like I was achieving a bit of a skill ceiling, actually, coming to a better understanding of the weapons and how I could use them to have more time and space to effectively navigate the maze minigame, as well as the upgrades that you get to the maze, where you can go through different nodes before you hack that will freeze the enemy or confuse the enemy, or make it so that you can hack multiple enemies at one time. And all of it actually really comes together to create some really cool synergies between the hacking and the weapons. And I don't know, by the end of it, I was having the most fun, actually, I would say, and definitely left me curious about where you could take this concept, where you could iterate on it and improve on it. And I definitely want to see that. Another thing that impressed me was the enemy design. The boss list here is really good. I thought visually they were all very, very cool and mostly fun to fight, mechanically interesting, I would say, for the most part. And then especially just the enemy variety throughout the game. This game does not have an enemy variety problem. There are a ton of different enemies. and they mix and match them so that you're fighting different combinations of enemies in each encounter. And it kind of all creates a puzzle where you go into an encounter and you have to figure out what is the easiest, most efficient way to take out this specific pairing of enemies. What do I prioritize? Which weapon from my arsenal is the most effective to take out this specific enemy? And it all works really well. My favorite enemy design were these standing ghost mech spider things that would go invisible, and they were typically placed in dark sectors of the space station to create more of a horror situation. But they were just really fun to fight. They would go invisible and stalk you, and they would get really close, and then right when they turn visible to grab you, you would dodge away, and you have just a split second to hack them before they would go invisible again. And if you do hack them, they stay visible, and these canisters pop out on their back. They're kind of hard to shoot because their arms are in the way. And you're just trying to pop these canisters on their back, and they do huge damage when you hit them. Just very, very fun to fight. Also, shout out to the giant, the giant creepy baby head robots. Terrifying, but just really cool enemy design in this game. As for my biggest complaints with the game, I would say the respawn is really not great. When you do die, the game sends you back to the hub area, and you have to run through the hub area to the fast travel, through a loading screen, and then back to whatever fight or boss you were at. And it's just really tedious and not great, and my best guess as to why they might have done this would be that there's some story or lore reasons that I won't spoil or share, but even if that's the case, it really doesn't excuse the fact that it's bad game design. It feels really bad, and thankfully I didn't die enough on any one enemy to really make this a problem. But if you're someone who struggles with the combat or the gameplay, I could see this becoming a real big pain in the butt. The other complaint I would say would be the platforming. This game does ask you to do platforming to some small extent, and it even has simulations, and most of them are combat focused, but some of them are heavy on platforming, and the platforming is just not great in this game. It feels very, again, to use the same word, clunky. It just feels not great, and I think they ask you to do too much of it for how not great it is. And I really would have preferred that it felt a little tighter. Hugh just doesn't control that well. He has quite a bit of realistic physics and momentum to the way he moves, and it just makes platforming not feel the best. And so anytime the game really asks you to do it, it's just not great. But yeah, that's really it. I really enjoyed my time with this game. Otherwise, I just think that all of the different pieces come together. They're fun. There's these little tiny collectibles that you can find in every level that make this annoying sound that help you find them. And once you do, you shoot them and they show up in your hub space. The hub space itself is a really cool space that you get to flesh out and bring different items and toys back for Diana, whether it's a skateboard or a slide or a campfire. And that gives you new interactions with Diana to develop her character, and just makes the hub space feel like a really cozy space, makes it feel like home. And then you've got really, really cool environment design. I don't know if it would be NASA punk or what it is, but just some really cool sci-fi set pieces, and especially at the end of the game, some really memorable segments that are just visually stunning and really cool. I enjoyed my time with this game. This is a really good game. It's worth your time, and you should probably check it out. For the fourth and final game that I played in April, we beat Split Fiction. And no, not the base game. This is affectionately referred to as Laser Hell, and it is a very secret, hidden challenge within the game that I can almost guarantee you're not going to find unless you look it up. But my brother and I spent the past year or so intermittently working on this when he would visit. You have to make it through these 5 rooms in a row without either of you dying, and relatively at the same time. You have to hit these buttons within seconds of each other to open the door. Otherwise, you will also be vaporized and get to restart. But the last time that we stopped, I wasn't sure if we were coming back to this. We were actually stuck on this room right here, which is the 4th out of 5 rooms. But we did. We came back at the end of April. We put a few more hours into it. And somehow we beat it. I'm still in shock. This is easily the hardest thing I've ever done in co-op. It would be decently challenging alone, but the fact that if either of you die, you have to restart just makes it brutal. We put thousands of attempts into this. And to put it in perspective, I think Split Fiction takes like 12 hours to beat. We're closing in on 30 hours in the game. So it's just so good to be done and to get some closure. Joseph Ferris personally congratulated us, and now we can rest.